What do you suggest for those civilians out there that are lost?
If you feel lost, accept that as part of the normal human experience. Look at that as a catalyst for you to think differently. We need to go out on a different path. And I recommend finding some time alone and doing some introspection to discover what that's telling you.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan 25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Joe DeSena, CEO, founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. Got a great one on today. Got a Navy SEAL, Kevin Stark, husband, dad, great youngsters, leadership expert. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Are Navy SEALs born or made, or, where'd this guy grow up?
That's a good question. There's probably seeds planted and then you got to cultivate them. I grew up all over the place. My dad was in the military, so we moved around quite a bit. Overseas, actually lived in Germany, Italy for a while, and then ended up living in Fresno, California before I joined the military.
Was it dad? What prompted you to raise your hand and say, I'm in?
I think like every young man, and even still to this day, you have like that call to adventure in your heart. Fortunately, I was mature enough to know that I was not mature enough for college. So I was like, I think the military is probably my best bet. My dad, he was Army. But even then, hearing stories about family members who served in the military, my dad's stepdad was actually one of the first frogmen. He graduated SEAL training in like early 60s, I think. So just wanted to follow in his footsteps. And hearing his stories about blowing up obstacles in the Pacific, I was like, man, that's the way to go.
I like it. How old were you?
When I joined, I was 17, but I couldn't leave till I was 18. So I joined when I was 18, right when I finished school.
So how hard was that year?
It was challenging. And I think everyone that goes probably has something that challenges them. It could be the water. For some, it might be runs. It could be the obstacle course. It could, everyone's got that something that they come across where, they're going to have to do the interior work to get through it. Mine was probably after Hell Week, doing like pool comp where we go, you're underwater in the pool, you're crawling along the bottom of the pool, instructor, puts his hand down, asks for your regulator, and you got to hand him the mouthpiece, hold your breath, and they tie your regulator in knots. And you got to stay calm and go through all your procedures to show. It's the ultimate test of, staying in that prefrontal cortex when you're fight or flight is getting tripped. So that was a challenge for me. And like most things, I think I made it out to be worse than it was. Before I did it, I was like, oh no, it's going to be tough for everyone, And then I did it and I passed and I was like, that was tough, but it wasn't actually that bad. And that was kind of that first seed of like how powerful the mind can be in favor of you, but how powerful of a disadvantage it can be too if you let it go down that negative treadmill.
What year was that when you graduated?
98.
I guess things got a little interesting, spicy around 2001, 2002.
Yeah, I remember I was driving into work like a normal day, and all of a sudden it was like traffic out of everywhere. What the heck's going on? And one of my bosses called me and said, hey, something bad happened. Like, you need to get into work. And yeah, sure enough, everyone's world changed after that.
How many years did you go overseas? Like let's say from 2001 till?
Yeah, I did 3 deployments to different locations, and I did 22 years. So I finished at 2019.
Rewarding? You love it?
I did. I think the human connections that I made are timeless. I've got multiple best friends, best man at wedding, godfather to children, and still that kind of deep human connection. And then just the ability to see the intensity of what life can offer and being familiar with that space and having a reverence for that space. Some of the biggest takeaways, I think, for me.
Hard to assimilate back into just a regular old boring civilian life?
Yeah, it was soul crushing. I think part of my environment was, I showed up to work every day with, 15 of my best friends, and we all knew each other. We had a deep connection. And we were always there to support each other. We spoke the same language, the culture, the identity was fused with the culture. There was a lot of clarity on, purpose and how to be and what's right, what's not. And then transitioning from that, and then not having an appropriate, for me, a grounded, independent identity, right? It was like something was ripped off, and I was like, oh man, who am I now in this space? And I went from a very intense, engaging environment to sitting behind a laptop computer and working on spreadsheets and PowerPoints. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. It was a really big change. And I struggled, I think, psychologically quite a bit until I, connected with my friends and made sure that we supported each other, because there was a group of us together that helped each other out, trying to be a provider and a sense of stability for my family after we just moved. We just had our third kid. So there was a lot on my plate, and I had to lean on outside resources and eat a bunch of humble pie at the same time, and realize hey, I have a lot of things to learn here. So put on your student cap and just learn the world around you. But it took some time.
Yeah, you go backwards pretty far, right? You're on top of the world, you're in charge, you're a badass, and then you're just a regular guy.
Part of me wanted to not have anything to do with the SEAL teams for a while. I was like, I just need a break. I'm tired. Probably because I fed the ego portion, right, to maintain the certain image, and that took energy, because at some point it wasn't authentic. And I think I realized hey, it's time for me to go another way, to serve people in a different way. And so making peace with that was part of the process. But I knew when I was done, I was done. I was like, okay, it's time to be a full-time dad and a husband and go serve others in a different way.
Hey, you got to be proud of yourself. A lot of that those transitions break. They don't work, and you've pulled it off. Yeah, what could you teach us? You're a leadership expert now, right? Tell us what you're doing now, and then what you could teach us that have a tough time transitioning that we should do. We should apply to our lives to get through it. Those transitions.
I mean, I took some of the things I was really passionate about. I had a lot of mentors when I was in that really showed me that there's more to the human condition than how fast you run, how good you shoot, right? The tangible metrics that we consider performance. And I started to dive really deep on character and service and values and excellence. And I found that I really loved learning about it, applying it to my life. And then I found when I would try to teach others, it was helpful for their lives too. So when I got out, at first I jumped into a CEO job. I was like, all right, chase the title and I chase the money. And that's the PowerPoint and spreadsheets that nearly destroyed me. And then I had to be honest with myself and say, look, go out there and serve others the best way you can. And so right now I do one-on-one leadership development coaching. I do some group coaching, and I do keynotes and workshops here and there. I would say probably my biggest driver right now is the retreats that I host. I do probably 4 or 5 day retreats. Take a group of folks from different walks of life. I like to mix veterans, first responders, and then folks from the private sector who are pursuing, deeper leadership, deeper personal awareness. Take them through ancient rites of passage, ceremonies and events that have been done for thousands of years. And in a way, I just get out of the way and I let, their intention and nature do the teaching.
What do you suggest for those civilians out there that are lost, that are having a tough time?
What a good question. I think number one, if you feel lost, or I hear sometimes people say is this it? I feel like I'm in a rut, or I feel like I'm in a grind. I would say number one, accept that as part of the normal human experience. Look at that as a catalyst for you to think differently. It's not a negative. It's not you're bad, you're wrong. It's subconscious language and your heart speaking to you and saying, we need to go out on a different path. And I think if you have that feeling present, you got to honor it. And I recommend finding some time alone and doing some introspection to discover what that's telling you, and putting away like these things, and the outside influences that are all geared towards transaction or driving you to do something that's inauthentic. Separate yourself from the environment and just do some prayer, meditation, stillness, be in nature, and the answers will come to you. And I think honoring the wisdom that you have within is the most important thing, because if we chase outside and external answers, we might have cool experiences, but ultimately the authentic path is within.
I grew up around a mom who was crunchy in the 70s and, forward thinking around health and wellness, and listening to you're using the language she would use. So it's like, I wouldn't expect a Navy SEAL to be speaking the way you're speaking, but it's pretty refreshing, right? That you like you said, you don't have that armor up, that ego, and I don't know, it's refreshing.
I appreciate it. I tell you what, it's a work in progress. I think as most team guys, we do have healthy egos, but I feel like if you've suffered enough, you realize the ego is not the answer. So you got to seek outside. And to your point, some of the spiritual aspects, we always focus on mind, body, fitness, but sometimes I think we neglect a little bit of the deeper unseen, unknown, and a connection with that can really be helpful and give people a lot of strength. But yeah, it's been a bit of an unraveling, which helped.
When I meet a UFC fighter or anybody in special forces, it's a less firm handshake than I would expect, right? I'm expecting a stiff, right? But I guess the stuff you've been through probably softens the edges.
I think you have a healthy respect for this, or maybe a humility of your place in the world when you've encountered a lot of challenging and intense things. And I think if you are a fighter, you're constantly learning and training. And I feel like if you learn and train with an open mind and humility, you get better. So I think that could be part of it. Is we're always wired to train and learn, observe. And if you go in with that, right, that hey bro handshake, you know what I mean? And that's ultimately a wall that won't let the wisdom come in that you're lacking.
What about some physical practices on a daily, cold showers, cold plunges, meditate? Give us some physical things.
Physically, I love cold plunges. I incorporate cold plunge in my retreats. We do one every morning as a way to once again, there's a few things number one, surrendering to the cold and just accepting your environment. And then another big concept I focus on is being able to choose your response, right? This idea of, Viktor Frankl, the space between stimulus and response. And I think mental toughness and developing character and values helps you do that. So when you get in that cold tub, the initial reaction your body sends to the brain is I'll get the hell out. This is cold. But you can play with that and be aware of it, but still choose to stay in. And it's truly a beautiful thing to see people progress on the retreats from day one. When they get in, it's all right, 43 degrees. We're going to do about 4 or 5 minutes, and they're sitting there like this, teeth gritting, as a survival mechanism the whole time. But then we'll teach them centering and breath control. And by the end, you'll see them just settle in and just they're just holy shit, I'm here. I passed the reaction threshold and I'm just choosing to be here as my best self. And so I love the cold plunge, cold showers. I always take cold showers. I used to laugh at people that did that. I'd be like, oh, that doesn't help. That's stupid. And then now I'm like, oh, it's actually brilliant. I feel like anytime I'm my mind's not clear, I'll force myself to do a maximum set of push-ups and just immediately switches my state. Through physical activity, walking, running, getting the body moving will help stir the mind out of inaction or if it's going down a negative space. So yeah, cold plunge, cold water, max set of push-ups, anytime.
There's nothing 30 burpees can't fix.
Exactly right. that's the beautiful thing. Like, there's no mystery to it. There's no, like, it's all easy right there, but it's not simple.
You and I should do a study. We should, when people are wound up and they're having issues, give them a piece of cheesecake or 30 burpees and see what the results are.
Yeah. That cheesecake leads to regret for sure.
Get into some of those traits you either look for and or develop in somebody being, excellent, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, the beauty of it is, I think the first principle of Arate is that it involves free will. So excellence is the choice. My job as a coach and sometimes a guide is to help people define what excellence is for them. I might have a set of virtues and values that help guide my life, and you might have a set. Maybe some are similar, some are not, but ultimately they help define what excellence is in your life. So it's a very self-empowering concept. So Arate is like, who are you at your best and who are you serving? When we go on the retreats, for example, I'll take people on, hikes out in the wilderness, and our job will be to share stories about ourselves when we were at our best. And as, let's say, you're sharing a story, let's say, hey, when you created Spartan Race, like why you did it, why you were inspired, like what was your vision, like all of the you at your best in that moment of creation. We would all listen as your teammates, and we would write down like the values and the virtues that we hear, right? Creativity, excitement, selfless service, whatever they might be. And afterwards, we come together and we say, like, here's the values that we heard that were yours, Joe. And then you can use that as an example and to help you create your own list of values. Because sometimes we look inward and we're not really sure, or we think like, hey, that was kind of cool, or it's even really hard to talk about yourself positively. So that's one of the exercises we do. But ultimately, it's like you define it for yourself. That way you own it. Because if it's the Kevin Stark method of excellence, like now there's dependence on an outside source for your authentic excellence. And like, I can't do that.
I say that to my teammates too. I'll say, like, you tell me what you think you have to get done. What right? Because then you own it.
Yeah, and once you speak it into existence, like now you're accountable to your words, and there's more power in that than if I tell you, you got to do this,
How long is the program?
The groups are about 90 days. Those are like virtual groups. And then the program itself that we do like in person is 5 days.
How do people find you?
I have a website. It's www.aratepath.com. Arate is the ancient Greek word for excellence and virtue. It's symbolic, and it means like you being your truly best self in the context of serving others, right? So it's not like how much of an awesome like blade can I be? It's like, how can I use myself in the service of my people while being my best version? So aratepath.com. And there's a little bit of light philosophy there. I also do some writing on LinkedIn articles, trying to share some of these points with folks. But
well, thanks for coming. And like I said, any of our events, especially since the name of your initiative is derived from an ancient Greek word, you have to come do some of these things at Spartan Races.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be awesome.